If you ever wanted to bring your special needs child to church but found their requirements dampening the experience, today's episode is for you. Our guest, Savannah Loudin, discusses the special needs ministry at Asbury Church in Madison, Alabama. She shares insights into a typical Sunday at Asbury, the team's requirements, and their ongoing dedication over the past decade. Savannah also provides guidance for local church leaders looking to initiate a similar ministry. Let's dive in.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Exceptional Stories and the People Who Live Them. Your host is Steve Dover, a special needs advocate and father of 2 special needs sons. This is a faith-based, in-depth conversation-styled podcast with and for parents of special needs children. This podcast will let you have a front row seat to hear how they do it, why they do it, and what you can learn from their experiences as they share their exceptional stories. Let's get started.
Welcome back to another episode of Exceptional Stories and the People Who Live Them. I'm your host, Steve Dover, and today I have a very special guest with me I want you to meet. She is involved in special needs ministry at her church. Now, when I started this podcast, it was initially initially meant to be parents telling their stories. But something I'm finding out along the way is a lot of parents want to take their children to church, but they run into issues with the church not being prepared or not planning or having a special needs ministry. So I reached out to Savannah Loudin, and she has joined us today. She is part of the special needs ministry at Asbury Church in Madison, Alabama. And we're just going to talk about what got her into this and some things they're doing there at Asbury. So Savannah, thank you so much for joining me. Nice to finally meet you. We've communicated electronically for a while, but glad to finally meet you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to meet you too.
Tell us let's start with you first, and then we'll talk about the ministry of the church. What is your connection to families or children with special needs? Why is your heart there?
Well, I have worked in the special education field for about 15 years.
Okay.
I spent the last 7 or 8 years, I was an RBT, so I was in homes with children with autism. I was in the clinical setting. I was in schools. Mm-hmm. I've also done job coaching for individuals on the spectrum. Okay. I've worked in multiple school settings in the special education departments, and my heart has always been with this demographic. Mm-hmm. So I've definitely seen, I think I've probably worked with, close to 250 different families. Okay. So I've definitely seen lots of stories, and I just think that they're such a great demographic to work with. So my heart's always been with them.
Is there anybody in your family that has special needs, or is this just something that you encountered as you went along in life?
Well, I kind of felt a calling in high school because I've always dealt with pretty severe anxiety myself. Okay. And so in high school, I saw myself, even though I was thriving academically and socially, I felt kind of misunderstood and isolated in my own mind. Mm-hmm. And then I would see the students who were actually isolated and misunderstood, physically isolated, and they were just overall misunderstood, and I felt like they were left out. Okay. And so my heart really went out to them. And so I started, trying to do what I could to go be with those students and just be a friend to them, because they deserve to have those typical peer interactions too. Yeah. And so from that moment on, I felt a calling. I was like, I know that I'm going to work with these students in my life because I wanted to advocate for them, especially if they can't advocate for themselves.
We've all been in that lunchroom and seen those, the ones that are treated a little bit different or have different things going on. And I think all of us deep inside, we want to be the one that'll reach out and just go over there and sit down with them and interact with them. But a lot of times our pride and how we want people to think about us will keep us from doing that. So you put all that aside, you could actually relate to some of the things that these kids were going through and feeling. So that enabled you to bridge that gap and get over there and get with them. Let's see, you said you worked with several different types of special needs families and children over the years. You mentioned autism. What else have you been exposed to? What else have you had opportunity to work with?
Autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, Rett syndrome, Angelman syndrome. I feel like the list goes on and on. Osteogenesis imperfecta. Just feel like if there is a diagnosis, I might have worked with it at some point.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds like it. Sounds like it. Okay. Well, let's talk about your church, Asbury Church in Madison, Alabama. I'm trying to remember how I found the link to that. I think I just did a simple Google search on Special Needs Church, and it was one of the first ones that popped up, and I clicked on the link and went through the website and was really impressed by what you guys have going on there. And tell us about that ministry and whose vision it was, and just lay some groundwork here so we can move forward.
Okay. Well, the lead pastor, Tommy Gray, I know this has been a very special cause, and it's been very close to his heart and his wife Carrie's heart for many years. As far as the ministry goes, we have classes for children and adults. And I will meet with families and create behavior plans if that's needed. If the children have medical issues such as seizures, or they need insulin, or whatever it might be. And also the staff and volunteers have specialized training so that we can work on de-escalation tactics and things like that. Okay. As well as the curriculum is tailored for these learners, so they can have that specific experience to have a meaningful relationship with Jesus. But it's not the same curriculum as the typical kids are learning, or the typical adults. It is tailored more towards them. Right. But they do also have the experience to worship along their typically developing peers. So we do integrate during worship, but the classes are separate. We have sensory items. We have like calm down spaces. And I will say, as far as the adult class, it is extremely interactive. They do science projects up there, learning their Bible verses. They play Bible Jeopardy. It is really, really an exceptional program.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed on the website. It's not just an all-inclusive type setting. It's broken. You have different classes for different age groups. So you maybe got 3-year-olds in one class, and you've got 23-year-olds in another class.
Absolutely.
And each class is geared and directed toward that age group. And you said you do kind of like an IEP with them, like you would do in school, to, I guess, for lack of a better term, customize their experience for them for what they need. What are some of the challenges that you have seen attendees to your special needs ministry? What are some of the challenges that these kids and young adults are facing?
As far as the church, I think that they are very well accepted, but of course the challenges extend past the walls of the church, as far as the community, the school. So if the child has behavioral needs, if they are feeling anxious, or if they're feeling upset about something and a behavior arises, thankfully we have the staff and volunteers to kind of address that. But I know that doesn't always generalize. So, if they were to go to a public event or something, I think that they often are stigmatized, and I think there's just a bit of a lack of understanding. And I know some people fear what they don't understand, so they might be afraid to come up and say hello, or if somebody looks different, or if they don't speak verbally, I think that there's just a lot of fear that surrounds that. So I would definitely say there are a lot of social challenges, just as far as being accepted in the community.
How does Asbury address those challenges and try to overcome them? What are some things you guys do?
Asbury is very good about being very open with the staff and the families. I mean, they integrate our adult class, which is called D2J, Devoted to Jesus, they allow them to serve as volunteers. They serve in the worship services. So it's just really giving everybody access to them. And I have an open door policy. I invite church leaders or church guests to come just watch a class and say, you will be blessed if you come in here. There's so much joy. And although you might not understand what you see, what you're looking at, you will quickly understand that these people have the love of Jesus so much in their heart, and they spread that love to everyone they encounter.
How do you and how does Asbury ensure that your ministry is accessible to individuals with a wide range of special needs, including physical, cognitive, sensory challenges, that type of thing?
We have spaces. I mean, first of all, everything is accessible. We have the elevators, we have wide rooms. One of our adult members, he calls it his power chair, and he has it fully decked out with lights and speakers and everything. And he is always the first to show up on Sunday mornings to get the tables ready and to get the whiteboard ready and everything. But we welcome people who are in wheelchairs or who are blind or deaf or who are non-speaking or do have cognitive delays, because Jesus loves everybody the same. Right. And we also have sensory rooms. There are two main buildings at Asbury. So we have a sensory room with lights and crash pads and everything for children that are feeling a little overwhelmed and just need to go calm down. Yeah. We also have a room for families. It has a couch in there. It has sensory walls. So if the families want to go in there with the child, they're welcome to go in there too. And again, we provide specific trainings for the staff and the volunteers. We host community events to try to give more access to the church themselves. And we just say, hey, we're a part of this congregation. Yeah. Come hang out with us and see, how they can bless you.
Now, is there some kind of prerequisite or something? Let's say there's a family that has an autistic child and they have found out about your church. They want to come and experience this. Do you meet with them ahead of time? And is that standard that you would do that, have a sit-down meeting with them and just see where they're at and what they need?
Typically, they go on the website and fill out an interest form, and then I get in contact with them, and I always like to meet the child or the adult, as well as the family. I like to have them come in. I like to know what motivates them. What do they like? What is your favorite TV show? Because I like to put together specialized things, especially if it's for a child. I want to have, if they like Bluey or Paw Patrol, I like to have little toys or stickers or books that they can come in. Yeah. I want to know their needs. I want to know their abilities and what barriers they have that I can help support and put those supports in place. So if it's a behavior plan, if it is headphones for being sensitive to noise. If it's medical assistance, I do have a couple kiddos that have seizures, so just being aware of that. I like to put together sensory bags so that the kids can have, fidget items or headphones or just comforting items that they're already familiar with. Right. And often I like the parents to come, especially for D2J or adult class. I love for the families to come sit in on the class so they have a sense of peace and understanding and say, oh, they are worshiping in here. They are doing interactive lessons. They are actually learning and creating that meaningful relationship with Jesus.
What would happen if somebody just showed up one Sunday without any pre-meeting, they just walk up, hey, here's my kid, he's got autism. What do you do?
Absolutely no problem. Typically, if that is the case, somebody will come find me, they'll direct them to me, and I'll say, hey, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for being here. We're so glad you're here. And I just try to get a brief overview, and I'll take them to whichever class they're best suited for and say, hey, do you want to come in and meet the teachers? These are the things we have in here. This is the lesson we're covering today. So, a family that just shows up, I am more than happy to accommodate them however I can.
Okay. Can you share some success stories of some situations where that worked?
Absolutely.
Worked out? Yeah.
So, one that comes to my mind, first of all, is a young man who came in and he was a bit nervous at first, and he's not nonverbal, but he doesn't speak functionally that often.
Right.
He will echo you and he will repeat things that you say. And so he came in, I met with his parents, and he came in and I went up there on the first day of class with him. He was in the adult class, and I just sat there with him and I was reassuring the parents, like, if you need anything, let me know. If I can bring any specific supports in here, I'm happy to. And they were singing their worship songs. They were playing Bible Jeopardy. And I would say probably 3 to 4 weeks later, he was calling the teachers by their names, unprompted. He was calling the classmates by their names. And he was also singing along to the worship songs. And he was reciting Bible verses, and so he wasn't echoing them. He was just reciting them from memory because of the way he had been taught in that class. And it was so meaningful to him. And it brought me to tears, like the first time he said my name, because I would be fine if he never said my name. I just want him to know that he's loved and included in there. But he shows up to church saying, Miss Savannah, and then he'll see his friends and he'll see the teachers. And he always likes to tell me the Bible verse that he's learned. So that was a huge success story for me, because I could see that he had so much anxiety surrounding going in there, especially without his parents, because his parents stayed for the first class. But also it's important for the families to have that meaningful relationship with Jesus, so they can go worship and they can feel at ease that their child is able to do the same thing.
Yeah. Well, that was a question I had for later. What do these parents do? Have you ever had anybody just drop off their kid and come back and get them later and not go to church?
I don't know if that's the case. I mean, it very well could be.
Kind of like just dropping them off at a babysitter for an hour or two?
Well, I know that respite care and finding trusted individuals to care for their children is a huge concern. And many parents have actually reached out to me saying, is there a parent support group? We would love to share resources. And I know that, of course, I don't have children with disabilities or any diagnoses, but I have been in the homes with these families, my whole career. And I see oftentimes people have said, where is God in all of this? And they say, we know God is somewhere, but where is he? And why is this happening? And so that is one thing that I'm working on, getting up and running at the church, is a good, solid parent and family support system, so they can get together and share resources, share therapies that they have found, or sensory items, or babysitters that are well qualified, or something like that, so the parents can have a sense of community as well as that respite, as that's so important.
Respite care is very important. I interviewed a family not too long ago, and they, based on the incident I'm about to talk about, they started a special needs ministry with their Down syndrome daughter that provides respite care and kind of like a day camp for kids. But they went to a meeting, and this mom brought in her child, dropped her off, went out to the car, got in the car, locked the doors, and took an 1.5-hour nap. And told them that that was the only break she was going to get. She didn't want to.
And I know that to be true.
Yeah. She didn't want to go see a movie. She didn't want to go hang out with friends, go to dinner. She just wanted to close her eyes in peace, knowing that her daughter was going to be taken care of for a little while.
Absolutely.
And, that is huge, respite care. So I'm glad to hear that you're working on getting that network together, because networking for special needs parents is huge. My wife and I are the parents to 2 special needs children and 2 special needs grandsons now. And our youngest one passed away when he was 13 from his genetic disorder.
Oh, my goodness.
But you were talking about being accessible. He was in a wheelchair the last 2 or 3 years of his life, which made going places difficult.
Absolutely.
Just because it's wheelchair accessible does not mean it's wheelchair friendly.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And the same thing with other disabilities as well. So that's good to know that all of that has been thought of, and things have been taken into consideration. And you guys are working not only to be a blessing to the kids, but also to those parents. And because, like you said, I'm sure there's a lot of parents that don't go to church because they just don't want to go through the hassle. They just don't want to have to deal with it.
Right. And a lot of parents have said to me they have shame not surrounding their child or their child's diagnosis, but of how people look at them or treat them or treat their child differently, or will not say hello, or they look away when they enter their service with their child, which is, that's not how Jesus would act. You know, he wants us to invite everybody to the table. And like I said, I understand the fear of some, not knowing, or if somebody doesn't speak, or, if they have trouble speaking or trouble walking. And if it's different, that doesn't mean that they're any less. It doesn't mean that it's scary. And so I really like to have fully inclusive environments that do, blend the typical world and the neurotypical world. So it's not scary. It's not different. And so the kids can play together and say, oh, I play with them at church, and then they'll see them at the park or the grocery store. And if they see another child like them, it's normal, and they can know, like, I should go up and say hi. Oh, I think you're muted. I can't hear you.
There we go. You got me now?
I got you back.
The wonders of technology. I will edit that out, and no one will know how stupid I am. We'll take care of that.
No, you're not at all.
Let's talk about the people that are volunteering to work in this special needs ministry. Do you have folks that do this professionally that are volunteering their time?
Yes. So I do have a couple of behavior therapists on staff or volunteering. I have high school students that just have a heart for it. I have somebody who has, I always say he's been on the forefront of autism research. He's been in the autism game decades, and he has done some quite impressive research, and he volunteers his time every Sunday. I've got families who have children of their own who have special needs. So it's just so interesting to see what brings these people to the ministry. But once they're there, they don't want to leave.
I would imagine not. Are there folks involved in this that are not professionals but have volunteered their time and have been trained to work in an environment like this?
Absolutely. And I do provide trainings. So I will provide trainings to the volunteers on how to be a buddy or de-escalation strategies. And we have policies in place where there's always 2 adults in a room with students. So children, adults, whatever it might be. So, just for safety and liability. But I go through a lot of different trainings with the staff and the volunteers of different tactics, and just even using visual schedules or visual cues, to help somebody know what to expect. Because I know anxiety comes with a lot of these kiddos or adults, And so just giving them pictures and saying, okay, first we're going to do this, then we're going to have a snack, then we're going to worship, and then we're going to do this, and then mom and dad are going to come back. Even a simple change like that is so effective in just managing the expectations of the individual, so they know that they have a safe place, they have a routine, and they have people that are going to take care of them and make sure that they're safe, and free to worship and enjoy Jesus.
As far as the state of Alabama is concerned, is there any licensings or any kind of special thing you guys, any hoops you guys had to jump through to get this started? Or is this just a ministry that was laid on somebody's heart and they went with it, and there's no state involvement or oversight or anything to speak of?
As far as licensing goes, I'm not actually sure, but I do know that this ministry has been active for many years, at least 10 years, because in August, I believe, the D2J, the Devoted to Jesus program, celebrated their 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
And that was started by Carrie and Kevin Plank. And they have a daughter with special needs who's in that class. And it was laid on their heart to build up that class from the ground up. But as far as the ministry itself, I'm not exactly sure of any hoops. I'm sure there were. But we do have very specific policies in place for safety, for medical needs, for anything that would affect the child or the adult, you know. And we share those with the parents. We let them know, like, this is what the expectations are of the staff and the volunteers. This is how we will support your child. And we're very regulated, and we do have those policies that keep everything in line. And some of us, myself included, do have the medical backgrounds if, you know, somebody was to need CPR or if they had a seizure or things like that. And so, again, we do have that specialized knowledge in the ministry that maybe some of the other volunteers at the church might not have.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know why I asked that. It just seems like the government's trying to get involved in everything. I didn't know if they had come knocking on y'all's door or not. Are there any specific programs or initiatives within your ministry that you'd like to highlight as particularly effective or innovative that you've seen?
We have Sunshine Friends, which is the children's ministry right now. And I mean, just like I said, we have the special curriculum that's tailored for them, but those kiddos do get to go worship right across the hall with the other kids. So all the kids join together in that worship, and they're doing the dances, they're doing the lessons, and then they get to go back to their class and kind of either decompress if it was too stimulating or kind of learn in their own specialized way. But D2J, I cannot speak enough about them and their leaders. They host parties. They just had, like I said, their 10-year anniversary party. They like to go bowling. They do all sorts of things. So I would like to increase the community engagement. So we've had parties for the church, but I would love to see them host something that other members of the community can come see and see our ministry at work in the church.
Yeah. Okay. Right. That makes sense. What you mentioned earlier, I think you said something about buddy system and buddy. Is that within the special needs ministry, or do you bring kids from the, I hate to say normal or whatever, but do you from the other classes in to buddy with these kids? Is that something you guys do?
So I am currently working on a buddy system. We don't have the ratio right now to have a 1-to-1 buddy system, but I do have enough staff and volunteers that if one child is needing a little bit extra support, I can send somebody who's trained to go be with just them and devote their attention and help them. I do have a student that has seizures, so I implement a buddy system with that student because the seizures are brought on by being overly upset and crying. And so I have the same buddy go with that student every Sunday. So she knows what to expect. She has that routine.
They're familiar with them.
We really want to minimize the anxiety and the discomfort of not having her. So that has worked wonders, having her in place, and she knows who to look for. And I do have other staff and volunteers that I can say, hey, so-and-so needs a little bit more help today. Do you mind going to be a buddy with them if they are in a different class? And it has been working out very well.
Okay. Let's talk to maybe some church leaders or elders within different churches, different denominations that are listening to this, and they think, you know, we could probably look at doing something like that in our own church. Is there any advice you would give them as far as, I know you weren't in on the ground floor of the ministry at Asbury, but you've been around it enough. You've seen enough. You're behind the curtain. You know what goes on. What advice would you give to a leader or someone within a church that says, I think this is something that my church might need to look into?
Well, first and foremost, they just need to have a heart for it, So if they are considering that, they're already on the right track. Okay. I would absolutely say reach out to parents, reach out to families, see what they need, see what they want for their child or their adult child, What experiences have they been missing out on that they wish that they could have for them, And so just start building. If it's a small group, with 3 students, say, okay, what do these students need? How can we support them? And then if it grows to adults, just finding people that have the heart for it, as far as class leaders, teachers, staff, volunteers. I think also making it fun, inviting the rest of the church to say, hey, we're going to do this, and allowing that demographic to help out or help host the party or be greeters or something, just giving the church more access and saying, hey, these people are here. They deserve to have the same Sunday school class or the same, recreational opportunities that everybody else has, and just kind of reaching out to the people who are already in it. As far as families, they could reach out to local schools or something and just say, hey, would there be any interest in this? Facebook groups, community Facebook groups. And I know I see all the time that people are saying, hey, what's a good sensory friendly activity we could do? Where's a good place that, has knowledgeable people to take my child? And people do call and email me, even from out of state, a lot of times saying, we're willing to relocate because you have services in place at your church. Yeah. So I think just having the heart for it, obviously pray about it. And I think that Jesus will provide the staff, the people that are willing to bring it together. And then you can just learn as you go. You don't have to be perfect when you're starting out, but just having a designated space or a designated lesson or somebody who's willing to pour into them, I think is, top priority.
Okay. Yeah. Our Baptist Association here, a few years ago, started special needs VBS, as part of Vacation Bible School. And my wife was in, because we, had raised special needs children. She was tapped to be one of the speakers in that, and to help the leaders organize what they needed to do to facilitate a special needs Vacation Bible School. So that was neat. But I honestly, in our area, I don't know of a church that has a special needs ministry. They may have some special needs kids that go to church there, but there's not a focused ministry for them. They're just included in the regular worship and regular Sunday school and stuff like that. And that worked for some. There's some that can be inclusive like that. But I like what you guys are doing, just making it their own world. And they get to come in and just have a great time and learn something very important too.
Absolutely.
The end game is a message, and if you can work through all the disabilities and everything that goes along with that and get that message across, I think that's what the goal is. In what ways do you see the broader community benefiting from the work of your special needs ministry?
Well, I think one thing is just creating that keen sense of empathy, seeing people that might not have your same experience, but saying, hey, everybody deserves to have this. And like I said, meaningful peer relationships, meaningful church experiences. And I think they could say, okay, we see what they're doing. Maybe that will help us to support somebody at my child's school or my neighbor or a family member, and I really like the verse, Luke 14:12 through 14. Is it okay if I read it off? I have it right here. I don't want to fumble it. Okay.
Fire away.
It says, then Jesus said to his host, I'm so sorry. Okay. When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not only invite your friends, your brothers, your sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of righteous. And I really love what that's saying. Like, they might not be able to repay you, but doing something for somebody who might not be able to do it for themselves is such a blessing. And you will just continue to bless people, even opening your heart to them, becoming a friend, saying like, I think it will inspire people to say, hey, I have a neighbor who has special needs. Maybe I'll invite them to lunch one day, or say, hey, do you want to go to a movie, or do you want to go see the Christmas lights? I think it will just show them like, it's not scary to have relationships with these people once you do it, Yeah. So just diving in and just really having that understanding. I mean, Jesus created us all, and everybody's fearfully and wonderfully made, but just jumping over that hurdle of saying, I'm afraid I might say something wrong. I might mess something up. Yeah. But just think of how it will trickle down to, if you're treating these children like that, your kids are going to treat them like that, like they're special and loved and accepted. And it's just going to keep spreading. Right.
Yeah, that it's interesting to watch how kids treat special kids. You can tell what the home life is like by how they treat them.
Right, absolutely.
Absolutely. I heard someone say something to the effect, the best definition of love is when you help or bless somebody that can't repay you. And we do a lot of things for people expecting things in return, but like you read, when we help the least of these, when we have a heart and a desire to help those that there's no way they can pay us back. There's no way they can even the score. That's special. And
sometimes
that
I think I don't want to say the reward, but the reward is even sweeter if you're not getting that return, because you're selfless. You're just pouring into them and showing them the love of Jesus, like Jesus sat with the lame and the crippled and the blind. And we should too, everybody should have a seat at the table, and they have just as much to offer. They just offer it in a different way. And, they can learn just like anybody else, but they learn in different ways. So we have to adapt to how they learn, teach them, and they will be successful.
Yeah, that it just amazes me when I see someone with a heart for special needs kids and their families. You're ministering to the family too, and there's a lot of people that would probably take their special needs child to church if they had access to what Asbury's doing and what you guys are doing. So, how can individuals and families get involved? First of all, with the ministry at Asbury, but then in general, if somebody's listening in California or another state, what would you suggest they do to find a church like Asbury that has this established ministry?
Well, as far as Asbury itself, I welcome anybody to come, and whether they have a connection to special needs or not, if they want to bring their child, even if they have a typical child, if they want to bring their typical child and sit in on the Sunshine Friends class and just say, oh, this friend has Down syndrome and this friend has autism. Those are just different ways of learning and different ways of interacting with the world. Everybody interacts with the world differently, and just giving more access to them. Or if they do want to volunteer, come on, come play Bible Jeopardy. I guarantee you the D2J class will beat you. I mean, they stump me every time I go in there, and I'm like, I thought I knew this, but they're going deep in the Bible, and they're so knowledgeable. They're so sharp. Yeah. They're so funny, and there's just no way you can have a bad day going in there. I mean, if you're feeling sad or anxious or frustrated, you walk in there and that just all goes away. They're so happy to see you. They are so genuine. And a lot of times they are innocent in the fact that they don't see stigmas and they don't see stereotypes and they don't see judgment and hatred. They just see you and they love you, So I would just invite people to come to our parties. We're going to have a Christmas party. I mean, just come up and have a snack with them, even, dip your toe in a little bit, I would say.
Yeah.
But if the families have a child or an adult that wants to join, I say bring them on. We will love them and accept them. They love new friends, and they know everybody's names, their parents' names. And if somebody's absent, they say, hey, where's so-and-so today? And it's so meaningful to have that community. So I would invite them. But as far as finding a church that's not Asbury, I mean, like you did an internet search, but also if it's on your heart, see what you can do at your own church. See if you can start a class, even if it's not weekly. Maybe, we have this class every other week, and let's try it out. Let's see what we can do, and just really ask the families and say, what do you wish you had here? Is there something we can do to put in place to make your child's experience a little better, or your siblings' experience, or make them feel a little more included, a little more welcomed, and then just build as you go.
How do folks get in touch with Asbury or get in touch with you if that would be a close option for them to try you guys out?
You can definitely reach me. I'm on the Asbury website. My email's on there.
Okay.
You can email me. I'm very accessible. I'll say, hey, do you want to call me? We can set up a meeting. You can come to church. I'll meet you. I'll come to your house.
Yeah.
We can meet in the community. I like to do what is comfortable for the family.
Right.
So they are comfortable with me. They feel safe leaving their child there. And I can say, hey, what has worked for you in the past? What has not worked for you in the past? And how can I support them so they have the most meaningful experience?
That's how I found you, was through the Asbury website. So
right.
I know it works. It works.
Yeah.
What is the website?
We are Asbury.com.
Asbury.com. Spell Asbury just to.
Asbury, and it's weareasbury.com.
Weareasbury.com. Okay. I'll include that in the show notes and put a link in there, and then they can find you through that. The last question I have for you before we wrap this thing up is, what are your hopes and goals for the future of the special needs ministry of your church? I know you're dealing with everyday stuff, but where would you like to see this ministry at Asbury in 5 years?
I would love to see, just more integration. So I would love to see some of my class members leading a class, or going out and, being a guest teacher for some of the children's ministries, or volunteering in the children's ministry, or, they're already serving in worship and as greeters. I would just love to see more of that. And I would love to see them walking down the hall, interacting with everybody as one. They're not exclusive. They're not being hidden away. They're not hidden away at all, but I would just love to see more and more integration. And I would love to see hosting community events, like a fall carnival or something, that they are.
Yeah.
Okay. They are hosting games or hosting, events, and the community is coming out. I would just like to see a lot more. There's so much joy in that ministry. I would like to see them spread it out to the community, and the community would be blessed. They're making snacks. I have a huge vision, like going to senior centers and hanging out with them, or, building a float for the parade and being a part of that.
All good dreams. You've got to be planning, that's for sure. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been a joy to finally get to meet you, and to hear a little bit about the special needs ministry at Asbury Church. And the folks, you can go to the website. We'll have it in the show notes, and you can see some pictures. You kind of read about it a little bit and see what's going on. If you have any questions or concerns or anything, you can reach out to Savannah from that website. So, Savannah Loudin, I really appreciate you being here today. Glad we were able to do this. I know it's going to help some folks. And when you get all that stuff going that you're dreaming about, we'll come back and we'll have an update. How about that?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Before we go, I want to thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. If you are the parent of a special needs child and wish to share your story with us or know someone we should talk with on the show, send an email to exceptionalstoriespodcast@gmail.com. If you've been enjoying the show, we'd love to hear from you. If you can take a minute, just leave us a 5-star rating on your preferred podcast platform. It would mean the world to us. Your ratings help us reach more listeners and continue to bring the quality content that you've learned to enjoy. I also want to invite you to follow us on our social media pages. You can find us on both Facebook and Instagram at Exceptional Stories Podcast. Lastly, if you found this podcast informative and you would like to keep it going, go to our website at www.exceptionalstoriespodcast.com. Click on the support button on our homepage. For as little as $3 per month, you can play an active role in making sure these stories are heard. Thank you for choosing to spend your precious time with us. Remember, you're not alone. Together, we'll create a world that embraces and supports every exceptional story. Until next week, be blessed.